Hello, everybody, and thank you to Games Industry for organizing this fantastic event. There's been some great talks over the last couple of days, and also the conversations outside the room, as always, have been just fantastic. So for that, I thank you to everyone. So what I want to talk a little bit about is cloud, the term cloud and how it's used and what we see now. And one of the things that has happened over the last few years is the term has just started to be used for everything. And that's kind of a shift really driven from a marketing perspective rather than sort of a need or a sort of accurate description of what the technology is. And that's created a lot of confusion. In fact, when OnLive first launched back in 2009, we steered away from the term cloud. We deliberately, we could see that was going on, it was being used in the enterprise space, but it wasn't something that we wanted to really talk about. We also at that time, funnily enough, steered away from the term streaming, and that was more to do with, as a new technology, streaming had a very loaded term as well, and licenses and agreements and the way lawyers used the term streaming meant it was something we were a little bit careful around. But those are the terms, and those are some of the things that we've started to see. So what does it actually mean? The term itself has generally sort of taken on this form where it takes anything that is put into a data center. And once you start to think about it like that, well, really we've been doing the cloud for years. We've had talks from RuneScape. We look at things like World of Warcraft. We've had everything that uses something in the back end is nowadays what would be termed a cloud. But the other thing that I've noticed a lot of, particularly over the last year or 18 months or so, is people have started to almost deliberately misuse the term to misrepresent and compare what they do against other people. And that I find particularly annoying because the cloud is essentially a set of tools. It's something that you can use, and you can pick what parts of it that make sense for you, if any of them. And so what I want to do is really sort of go through what some of these terms, what they are, what they mean, and the sorts of things they can do for you. It doesn't solve everything. It is not a solution for all people. You don't just want to say, I need cloud. Streaming is a solution. Partial downloads, all of those. They all have a space, they all have a place, and in some cases they can actually work together as well. So it's about looking at those and thinking if those are something you want to use and how you're going to do them. So my background is, and in fact, just from the previous presentation from Ben seeing the aircraft simulator, that's actually what I started out my career doing. I built for the military avionics simulators. And then I've always had a background in platforms. I'm a systems engineer. And for the last few years, I've been focused entirely on OnLive. And everyone will have seen the history of what we went through. So also interesting to see things like the Hindenburg picture, because we have a little bit of that in our background as well. So here's one of the terms you'll hear, progressive download. Progressive download is a way of getting things to you quicker. It's basically, if you look at the size of the games, you look at the size of the assets that are coming down now, they can be huge. We've just launched a game yesterday that is 6.5 gigabytes. And at 6.5 gigabytes, even with a good broadband connection, you're still talking about an hour or more of time before it even starts. And you see this now with, as we go to the new console generation as well, they're starting to embrace this. We're seeing the new games where you can start playing them, and you can start playing when they're about 10, 20% downloaded. And what that's doing is it's getting you through, typically through the learning phases at the beginning, getting you a start of playing the game and bringing it up. But it still ultimately is dependent on the resource it's being loaded onto. You still need the GPU, you still need the CPU, you still need the storage space. 6 gigabytes is still 6 gigabytes of local storage when you bring this down. You also have to develop the game to support it. You can't just take a game off the shelf and arbitrarily cut it up. It's about how you design it at the front to allow you to break it down and then start to deliver that game in pieces so that you can then get it working quicker. But it is a nice, elegant solution for getting games to you and getting you starting quickly. There's a couple of other terms I've seen floating around in this space as well that are essentially doing the same thing, which is cloud paging and virtualization. And really, it's the same thing. You are still bringing pieces down of the game to get to your local device that has to be able to run it. You can't just suddenly magically take your game and run it on a platform that it wasn't designed for. So if your game is built for a PC, you're still going to need a PC for it to actually run on. Offload is another term. You won't hear it quite so much, and it's used in different ways. When Microsoft talk about it on Xbox, they're generally talking about things like AI. There are elements of doing rendering in the back end as well. You don't do it for fast-moving rendering. It's being used for doing large scenes and creating. But it's also being used for things like Titanfall and Forza, where they're taking elements and they're using the back-end servers to create more intelligent gameplay. They have the drivatars in Forza that can then be inserted into any games. A lot of the stuff that's going on in the AI in Titanfall is actually being done at the back end and then brought down. The gain for this is that your platform can take advantage of these back-end systems, and so all of a sudden, these data centers, and the picture we've just seen with all of those racks of servers in them, can become a very powerful sort of add-on to your computing, and the client itself at the front on the console can use all the available power there, and then you've got more power behind it. But it can make the game design far more complex. You're taking into account a lot more. You've got distributed systems. The mechanics behind it become potentially far more complicated. And it's a much more complex model to write to. And so you're then looking at more expensive development, not surprisingly. And then there's streaming. Streaming is OnLive. Streaming is Gaikai, PlayStation Now. That is taking a frame-by-frame from a machine in the data center, rendering it, encoding it, and then shipping it down the wire. It increases the reach, it increases the available platforms you can work on. It can potentially change the business models you work with. It does require good broadband. There's no secret to that. It is no different in that respect to watching BBC iPlayer or Netflix. What we have seen, though, is since we first launched this technology, is how much the broadband has increased, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. One thing all of these technologies require is if you're going to use back-end data systems, then you're going to need networks, you need broadband, and so even when we talk about we don't like the cloud, basically it's there, it's not going away, and we're only going to see more and more of all of these technologies be developed to take advantage of it. One note that I did make there on what's required for streaming is to think about. One of the things it's done is it allows you to take a game and deliver it across many different platforms. We have no problem running on Android devices, we can run on PCs, we can run on Macs. But those devices are all very, very different, and you can't just force a game onto a small form factor or onto a touch screen and expect it to work. So it's something to think about. If that's what you want from your game, then maybe you have to think about some of the mechanics that are involved there. Maybe you want to put overlays in it, touch enable it, or maybe you want to sort of think about what you might gain out of having those different devices being able to access the game. So this is a snapshot. This is taken from our own analytics data. We do this all the time. We have Backend, not surprisingly, that is doing an awful lot of monitoring of what is going on. And this is a quick snapshot of the US that was taken I think, January 2014, so it's last few months. What you see in green, not surprisingly, networks follow population density. There'll be no surprise in that. We've just had the latest Akamai State of the Union report come out about 2 weeks ago that has said the average broadband speed in the US is now 10 megabits a second. Now, the US is a very large country. You see that big hole in the middle, what they affectionately refer to as the flyover states. Networks aren't very good there. Networks are genuinely terrible in that space. But what you see on the West Coast, and basically from Dallas, Austin in Texas, down at the bottom, all the way up to the northeast, everything's very, very good, and it's all very well connected. And in fact, that's where you're seeing the fast fiber. Typically, most people now have access to greater than 40 megabit platforms. And in fact, we're now starting to see test rolling out of gigabit fiber. Google's been deploying stuff for a while. AT&T is starting to do similar things. And so, where it's green and yellow, basically streaming works. We know we can take effect of that. This is a similar picture of the UK. The average story for broadband in the UK is actually much better than it is in the US. Our average data rate is close to double. And again, not surprisingly, it follows the urban build-outs. And based on a report just a couple of days ago, in fact, the pickup for is increasing rapidly because people like Virgin and BT are building out, and they're building out in population-dense areas because that's obviously a quick win for the market. But now that people have access to these services, and we're seeing all of these other streaming services like video, music, people are actually signing up for the high-end broadband. And so it's not unusual for people to now be getting 60, 80, even 150 megabits a second routinely. I recently got bumped from 120 to 150, and I do a lot of speed testing, and it's actually performing at around about 95, 98% of advertised speed, and that's out in Surrey, so it's quite astonishing. So they all work, all of these technologies work, and I've been working on this for quite a long time. It's always interesting when people tell me it doesn't. It doesn't work for everyone. And there were issues with business models. There were issues with the approaches we took. We built a walled garden. And we had to think about what it is that, what are we solving for? What are we really doing when we look at streaming? And what is it that you guys as developers, you guys as publishers, will take from this? We had channel conflicts. We had pain with onboarding the games onto the platform. Everything from the user end with bad networks a couple of years ago to the publisher and developer, like I say, we were basically fighting against instead of working with. So we, about 6 months ago, decided to completely switch our business model. We changed dramatically what we were doing. We went away from selling games directly. You no longer buy a game on OnLive that you own on OnLive. You now buy games from other platforms. And we created a platform, we created a product called CloudLift that allows you to basically take your Steam library, and the games that are in your Steam library will now be synced with OnLive, and now we add mobility and platform agnosticism across those different devices. So that was one piece. That was something we launched a couple of months ago. It was great, and that's working well. It's currently in beta, and what we're seeing is people love it. They love the idea of suddenly being able to access the games they already owned. They love the fact that they don't have to buy it again, and they love the fact that they can suddenly play it across multiple devices. So then we started looking at other things we can solve now. We'd got rid of the problem of the pain of onboarding. There's no longer an OnLive SDK to bring games onto the platform. We pretty much take the executable. And this opened up another opportunity. So in the free-to-play MMO world, some of those games are pretty large, and they're very graphically intense. And when you have a free game, if you can't get straight into it, and if you can't start playing it, then there's actually a lot of breakage. If there's a problem in the download, if somebody doesn't want to do it, wants to go off, do something else, what we've seen is greater than 80% breakage from the moment that they go to the website to look at the game. Halfway through the install, they walk away. The minimum hardware specification was high, and there was no cross-platform compatibility. So we actually solved this. We worked with a partner and to prove that this can be done. And yesterday, we went live with War Thunder, free-to-play MMO. As of yesterday, they announced over 6 million players. It's our first free-to-play MMO, and we've used the same CloudLift technology to bring it to everyone. You no longer need a discrete GPU. I travel a lot. I have a MacBook Air, it's 11-inch. It's a very powerful little machine, but it's not a very good gaming machine. It has an integrated graphics. This is true of PC, it's true of tablets and low-end devices. And the other thing we wanted to do was solve this so that you could get straight into the game, you can try it, and then if you want to download it, if you want to have it locally, well, that's still available to you because the games are all synced in the cloud. They're all saved up there. And if you play the local game, it's still that same save, and then you can take it on the road with you through OnLive. So we launched that yesterday. It's already being hit pretty hard. It's great. We're seeing people charging in to try it. You can also go straight to their webpage and do a free trial. You can just click a button, and it will bring up War Thunder straight on whatever machine you happen to be on. And this is another way. It's another tool that is allowing Gaijin to get to more people and get to more people quickly. And so the model for them is very, very effective. This is a way of getting past that, how do I get someone to even find out if they want to play this game? So I'm going to show a couple of videos now, and they'll give you an idea of what happens when you take a very powerful game and you run it on a low-end machine, and then you run that same machine through OnLive. So if we could have video 1, please. This is War Thunder on my MacBook Air. It's giving me a headache watching it. Note those sharp graphics. It's lovely. So that's actually running at about 6 frames a second. That's pretty much all I can do, and that's with all the graphics settings set to low. This is exactly the same scene now on video 2, and this is running through just a standard home broadband connection. So straight away, you can see the change in the frame rate. That's running at around about, on the back end, that's running at 60 frames a second. On broadband, that's running at about 6 megabits a second. It's genuinely just done on a home connection, nothing particularly special about it. Another quick example, video 3. Again, this is the local version. Look at the propeller. Lovely panning shot. And now video 4, please. Everything from the instrumentation to the propeller, much smoother. Straight away you can see that what we've done is made this game accessible. This is also how it looks on a tablet, by the way. And it's just as playable with a controller. Okay, can stop the video now. So the model for them is simple. We run it, we play it, we convert customers for them. Customers who want to keep playing it through OnLive subscribe to the cloud service, so there's a subscription for the convenience of getting that, and the in-app purchases work exactly the same as they always have, so War Thunder continues to monetize its model the way it does, and it's basically for both of us a very easy way to build this product into the platform and continue to make it, and hopefully increase the sign-up rates for them. So the underlying message of all of this is when somebody says cloud, find out what they actually mean. The cloud is a set of tools. There's a whole pile of different things that can be done with it. One of the things that we are learning since we launched CloudLift is it opens up a whole new world of opportunities for us as to what we can do and how we work with people. And that was a big learning for OnLive was, you know, we have to be something that makes it better for you, gives you an advantage, gives you a reason to want to use it, which is exactly why Gaijin said, let's do this, let's make this happen, because they love what we've been doing with this. So that's it. Thank you very much.